I thought early in the morning, was on the phone from 3:30 to 6.
Oh my
Home,
gosh.
as I'm headed to
Okay.
the airport. And still. So I finally got out at, I was on standby and finally got out at noon. So,
right.
that's that county business.
That's right. Good morning, we are rolling on the tape. It is May 12th, and this is our work session to begin at 9:30. We had David Zach with SIDEC scheduled to come in, but he's had to change that. So we didn't have anything else, anyone else scheduled coming in, so I don't know if there's anything we want to talk about, or do we want to briefly otherwise recess and wait till our regular session to handle stuff? Like I said, we didn't know that until this morning, that he couldn't make it. I didn't know, yeah,
I just spoke on some reason.
yeah.
I'd like to have a little update. I spoke with a few people about the meeting yesterday. And I just want to go on record that from what I understand, there was some thoughts on perhaps we could do this ourselves versus to have a facilitator. I've been personally through numerous building projects, multi-million-dollar building projects. I would not, and I don't think any of us have the knowledge or the expertise to tackle a project of this magnitude without having somebody at a much higher level to put this together.
What Fred's referring to is the leadership team meeting of the Joint Justice Center group yesterday at the COG, correct?
Yeah.
That Mike and Stacy attended,
That's correct.
with the other
And thank
party,
you,
the other
Mr.
parties.
Kirshner, I really wanted to make that one, but unfortunately I couldn't. I appreciate you stepping in for me on that one, brought it up.
We can obviously talk about this now. We do have Derek coming to speak with us in executive session regarding contracts, and that particular contract at 10:15.
Okay.
And so I don't know if you want to wait. I know there was reference, a couple people asked me what was, if it was coming up on the agenda, and I said we had that scheduled. So I said it might, and so I know they weren't going to come until the 10 o'clock session, but that doesn't mean we can't talk now and talk then, or whatever we want to do.
Well, I think I can say a few things, I think that are just, pretty much vanilla. And that is that the COG did put together a folder that I gave both of you a copy of. That is a Gantt chart, flow chart, or whatever you want to refer to it as, that kind of takes us from the beginning to the end, or at least from the beginning to construction. And they spent a lot of time with this. There's a schedule of activities for selecting the architect, schedule of activities for selecting the construction manager. And I think that the one thing that we need to keep in mind, that this is a bit like changing tires on a moving car, in that we have got two separate divisions of government attempting to do a joint project. And because of that fact, we need to, as close as possible, simultaneously pass, for lack of a better word, legislation or procedures that we can build this building. At this point, the concern is that we have a memorandum of understanding with the city, but that really doesn't have any teeth. It's just, as we said, a memorandum of understanding. So the city, at some point, we've had this discussion, needs to pass some legislation specifically allowing the city to be part of this Joint Justice Center project.
If I can make a comment here, and again, I've only got kind of the peripheral here, and I look at it no different than the East Tower RTA. That's a memorandum of understanding. I am not, even the Justice Center, I'm not advocating any of us say absolutely positively this is what we're doing until we know what the cost is. The issue that we've got and the decision that we have to make is to get to that point, we have to be committed to put some money in it to find out what the cost is going to be. Now, at that point, so I think in my mind, that's where the city and the county need to be at, is, yeah, we have this memorandum of understanding, this is what we'd like to do, but none of us know, we've had some preliminary cost and, okay, but we don't have exactly how much it's gonna cost us here. And to get to that point, there has to be a commitment. This is where the commitment has to be made, county and the city, as to whatever it is. If we're gonna put 200,000 or whatever it is, to get to that point, and then at that point, then we'll be at a crossroads. We either make the decision to jump into water and swim, or stay on the shore. Either make the decision to do the Justice Center or not. But we can't, at this point, make that decision, but you can't get to that point until you invest some money.
Well,
Period.
anything that we get at this time from an architect or from a construction company is gonna be an estimate. We have, the Burgess and Nyepel report that's now over a year old that showed that the building cost was gonna be approximately $8.7 million. Now, I know that changes. I know that there's some contingencies, and I know that it can be more than that. But I think that we, as this board, have pretty much committed to doing this building. And we have to take somewhat of a leap of faith. I mean, in any construction project, yes, you have to get estimates, and yes, you have to know costs, but that's what they are at this time. They're estimates and they're approximate costs.
Yeah, but don't you think though, Commissioner Kirschner, if we go through the architectural design, if we go through the bidding process, and which is gonna cost us money to get to that point, and then we'll know what the actual cost is.
Yeah, I mean, if the bids come in at some number that is significantly higher than the estimates were, we certainly have to rethink it.
Yeah.
But I don't anticipate, from everything that I've read and everything that I've understood, the construction costs have increased that much. $500,000 of that, don't forget, was to redo the annex.
Yeah.
And we're probably not gonna have to do anything there. That thing is pretty much set for juvenile and probate court, the way that it sets. So, if we need to do some updates later on, we can do that out of operating monies, but at this point, we've got that cushion. And yeah, there's gonna be some design factors on this building. Everybody, I think, wants it to be a building we can all be proud of, and there will probably be some, for lack of a better word again, gingerbread, some design on the outside that blends it with the current type of construction that is downtown, and that probably will come at some cost. But I don't believe that it's gonna escalate to the point that we're going to have to back off from it. But again, one of the issues we have to come up with, and we'll talk to Derek about that, without letting any cat out of the bag, is that we have to decide the ownership structure of this facility. We've agreed that the city is gonna have 25% of the new structure, but how do you do that? I mean, is it, in the private sector, it would maybe be a condominium project, that there would be some agreement on the ongoing maintenance, or it would be a separate limited liability corporation in which we own 75 and they own 25. But I don't know that you can do that as government agencies. I mean, our council is going to have to tell us what's the best structure. So I think that the cost is certainly a factor, but I think we've got a number of other barriers to get over before we can absolutely say that this is a project that's moving forward.
I would agree with that 100%. I mean, that's what, was my goal last year. Let's get the contractual things behind us. And again, the issue was last year, were we gonna go to East Tower, were we gonna go there? To me, that was immaterial location. It was all about how are you gonna operate this thing after, if you put it there, you put it at the old Newberry store, it was immaterial. Contractually, that had to be put together. So, okay, I think, yes, we need to do that now. And a question I've got, we've got this $500,000 zero interest loan for 12 years.
Yes.
Can that be used for this art? Now, we have to have a contract between the city and the county. Let's say if we spend this money, and hopefully it doesn't cost this much for us to get a firm cost, but whatever we do spend of that, we gotta pay back. Can we, and this is what we have to deal with our council,
And that's,
can that be distributed on a 75-25 basis? So let's just say if we don't go forward with it, and we spend $300,000 to get to that point.
We asked that question yesterday, and we can, before we have firm commitments on both sides, start to use that money. The specific question as to when and how it needs to be repaid is still up in the air. if it doesn't become a joint justice center. I mean, we have every indication, understand, that this is gonna be a joint center. It's just a question of how it's gonna be structured. But if we use some of that money, and it ends up not being a joint justice center, there would be some format by which the state would tell us we need to pay it back.
Yeah. And then how do we deal with the COG? I mean, they're gonna have some fees that they're gonna incur, and all of a sudden, if we decide we don't go forward with that, we're talking about here is getting half pregnant, which is not possible. I understand that. I'm sorry, Holly. I'll let you-
Thank you. You're waiting.
Why aren't you apologizing to me?
Because I haven't got a word in edgewise yet, but
There's a reason we got you between us here. Thank you.
back on to first, it wasn't where I was gonna go first, but on the zero interest $500,000 loan, the fact is that'll have to be paid back, but if it's not a joint justice center, they may say, pay it in now, guys, because, you're not, you're breaching the reason we gave it to you for this joint justice facility. Otherwise, there was an outline in this project management agreement about how the payment occurs if it's all used for the joint justice center. And it does say, in answer to your question, architectural planning and project management cost. So yeah, it can start being used for any of those kinds of things.
And excuse me, we have, if we decide not to go forward with it, we have money set aside for the Justice Center that we could pay our share and not have any budgetary issues with it.
Right.
So we're okay there.
Yeah, and I think we're moving on through Budget Commission to establish a line for the Joint Justice Center for monies of stuff, because when we talk about everything being transparent, we don't want to pay this out of here and pay this out of there. We want to get the account set up and be able to track everything all the way through. So that's in regards to that. Now back to the whole topic in general, where it'll be good to have Derek to ask some questions of today is exactly that. Where's the agreement, contractual document, whatever it is, that just says about the basic ownership, this is on the county property, and this building's going to have this, and this is going to be the percentage of it. How is that? Is it a condo type association set up? Whatever that is, because I think that's the first move that we need to have in writing before anything else.
Yeah.
That's the first agreement that we need. We, got the memorandum that, yes, the intent is to make this a joint justice center, and I get it, we don't have a price tag on it yet. We have a general target of where we're going. We know we can only afford so much. We know it's not there is a ceiling to that dollar figure of what the county is capable of doing in more ways than one. So being as frugal as we can moving forward with all this money, zero interest money or otherwise, is very important. So, and back to your very opening statement about I wasn't at the meeting yesterday, but have heard about the meeting from yesterday, I will beg to differ, because I think we have county employees on all levels that have handled capital projects like this, and I think it's irregardless of the dollar, the price tag of that project, all the steps, procedures, bidding, qualifications, filings, tracking, and all of that stuff still has to happen. And it doesn't matter if it's a $2 million project or it's a $10 million project, all of those steps still have to happen. So that is concerns that we can handle those things, or that we need to handle those things in the most frugal way possible and what makes sense. And in the end, and that's some of the things I highlighted in the draft contract I had, we're held accountable to all of those things. It's gonna be our prosecutor's office, it's gonna be our auditor's office, it's gonna be our office here that in the end takes the heat, and that accounts to the actions of which we as the county take. And I assume that somehow that falls in for the city and their portion of this as well. So those were just my general comments, and again.
Okay, but that's the case in all projects, that the ultimate responsibility from a legal standpoint is the prosecutor, and the ultimate responsibility for the project is us as a board of commissioners. I get that, and I know that we ultimately have to sign off of all those things. But this is unique in that it is a joint project with two separate municipalities, and somebody has to run interference. There has to be somebody who's going to keep on this thing as shown if I had any question about the COG's involvement, it went away once I looked at what the work they had done regarding the flow chart of this project and regarding the timing and making certain that people were at the table that needed to be at the table. So, in my opinion, because of the complicated structure of this particular project, there needs to be an intermediary between both government entities to make certain that we're doing things as simultaneously as possible, and that no one is too far behind, and that we're all on the same page as we go forward. And I don't know that as individual government entities, I think that we've proven that the communication doesn't always get back and forth, and the timing of things isn't always as it needs to be, without somebody else running interference.
And so once we have a starting type of situation of understanding, again, the ownership, property, and all of those kinds of things, that would help us, because if somehow, I want to think that somehow this is going to be able to establish and be simpler than it seems to be in terms of, it's our property, the building's going to be shared, and we can move forward on these things, and it's not that the city should have say in everything. It's not a matter of just because they're only 25%. They should have equal say. But I want to think it's not going to be as complicated once we get those first documents in place as we move forward, that I feel like I'm not sure that mediator is needed. That,
Well, we're not where we need to be.
we're not there yet.
But we wouldn't even be to this point had the COG not been involved, in my opinion.
Yeah, Holly, I understand your point there, and I hate to almost say this, but I happen to agree strongly with Commissioner Kirsten, and that bothers me to agree with him here. But, and the reason, my justification for it is I was involved with the Joint Justice Center from the beginning, prior to even the COG getting involved. We had the judges, we had the city, and we had Port Authority, and we had SIDEC, and we had a commissioner. And we would sit around in a room. We had great ideas, we just couldn't get it to the next level, couldn't get it to the next level. I believe this project, and I understand we all have a difference of opinion here, and I'm not faulting anybody at all, because it's a very complex program, but I think there are going to be issues that are going to need this third neutral party through the whole building process. And I think that's going to be extremely important, the interaction of this third party. And not only to get this on the ball and get the agenda, and I haven't seen the agenda, but that's, from what you've explained to me, Commissioner Kirsten, that's exactly what I asked Dr. Lahosky to do. I said, I need to understand, because I see the fees, and that's kind of bothered me, their level of fees. And I said, I need to understand step by step by step, run me through this as a child.
Well,
And it sounds like they've done that.
Take the fees out of the equation, because those are negotiable.
Okay.
Nobody has signed any contract at this point. They are basically the owner's rep, and by the owner, I mean the city of Tiffin and the county of Seneca. And we would pay a percentage of at least that to have an owner's rep for this process. We originally talked about having a COG and an owner's rep. I recall that was some early conversation. So we've eliminated the owner's representative, and they're going to act as that.
But again, I believe there's going to be issues through this whole project until we get our handed the keys that are going to have to be worked out, and that the importance of that third. What we're doing is we're kind of getting married here with the city, and we all realize how difficult that can be.
Well, I know, like I said, it'll be interesting for
Don't
Derek's
quote me there.
comments on things with the contract and that beginning agreement part that we need as well. So I don't know if we want to talk much more about this or wait until we
Yeah, I
get
know,
a chance to.
especially 4 and 5. But I guess that was a little extended summary of the meeting yesterday. Stacy was there, she made one comment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And I'm not fine,
Or not.
usually in a project like this, there's no real right way or wrong way. We just want to try to funnel everyone's thought process and get it to an area that we can move forward. Because I think the worst thing that could happen here is nothing. I think we've got the city and the county that are close. I think financially, we're able to be very prudent stewards of the taxpayers' money. I think from an interest rate level, it makes sense. Time is only gonna cost more money. So we don't wanna delay this thing in years and years down the road, but we wanna do it right. Don't wanna delay it.
Anything else on it for now, or?
Just yesterday, when we had the meeting, the last week when we got a copy of the contract, I know our office, different commissioners had a question that we needed to know, okay, for this amount in the contract, what were they doing for us? And that was the question that I had brought up yesterday, because I heard conversations in our office. So I think, I didn't know how that question was perceived. I didn't insinuate that we shouldn't use the COG for this. I just wanted them to provide us with what they're gonna do, because we have to have justification for the taxpayers, and that's when he gave us those binders on that, so.
And that's where, when we get into talking, and I don't know, except like you said, I think that might be premature now, about that negotiable figure, that fee figure, because when I get thinking at that, or what it is in this first draft of this first draft of this contract, I am extremely bothered by that figure, because looking at what's going to be done, and I don't know those things exactly, but I really don't think that they do either. When it comes to project management experience in this, I think we have it in the county staff, more so than they have, because that's not what they've been doing, rightfully so. I mean, it's not been their bailiwick that they've been project management people for all these things. They've, I've gone after the grants, and they've gotten those projects and those things and so forth, but it's not something that they have, a great deal of experience. So you tell me whether these 8 different items listed under the scope of services, how much time those things are going to take. And again, we have to be frugal and efficient with the dollars we have, because in the end, obviously the goal is the building that is going to withstand generations, and to be under agreements that work for both the city and the county for generations, and nobody backlashing to why we did it the way we did it, and somebody's getting the raw end of the deal 40 years from now. That's not, we want it all to be set the way it's an operable agreement for the future.
Well, that's why it's important to structure it correctly from the very beginning, so that into the future, it makes it easier to continue the operation. And as you had said earlier, the fact is that Stacy and the rest of the county employees are still going to have the responsibility of making certain this project is done as it should be done under our rules and our procedures. But, so that's not going to go away. We still need that expertise.
Yeah.
But we also need a conduit through which it gets done as smoothly as possible between the city and the county.
Any more on that for now? We want to
No,
hold?
nothing on that. I do have another, totally unrelated to this. I had a call last week. What is the Green River ordinance?
But we're gonna do that under old business.
That's okay.
Or new business, sorry. But I do have an answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, we used to have all the signs coming to City Tiffin all the time.
Yeah, but what is it?
Word is.
Okay, we'll find out in a little bit. Do you know what it
I
is?
don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, we know what it is.
I think it's solicitation, but whatever.
Gotta have a permit before you go door to door.
Okay.
I don't know where the Green River is though.
No, it was a court case somewhere, so that's where they got their name from.
Okay. we can
All right,
recess for
we want to
5 minutes.
recess for 5 minutes, and then we'll go regular session. Okay, that's what we'll do. That way you can at least stop the tape for 5 minutes.
Brought the donuts or the cookies today, anybody? As I'm looking